Hello and welcome to this Design Spark Roundtable discussion on sustainability. My name is Lee Hibbert. I'm the Content Director at Publitech, which is a global B2B marketing agency. And it's my role today to facilitate this online discussion. So we have an excellent lineup of participants from a broad range of backgrounds and disciplines. And they have one thing in common. They're playing a key role in driving sustainability efforts inside their organisations. So they're exactly the right sorts of people that we need for today's discussion. So let's kick off with our first area of discussion today. So I think it is fair to say that sometimes there can be a certain level of skepticism around sustainability. The word means different things to different people, for example. So sometimes it can seem quite an intangible thing, really. So what I would really be interested in from the table, really, is what is it that you are doing to put sustainability at the heart of your operations? Perhaps William from Schneider. Maybe we'll start with you. You work for a large company, so what's been happening inside your organisation?
Yeah, thank you, Lee. Okay, at Schneider Electric, we are an impact company, and we've been working on this topic for more than 15 years. So it's not new for us, and the way, we of course we want to embed sustainability in our products, systems, offers we design to be sustainable. And for example, we've launched the program called Green Premium, which is our own label, but there's a standard we developed behind that, which is our standard. Green Premium is basically the way we embed sustainability in all the products we design. Today, Green Premium covers about 80% of our turnover, so it's well implemented, and basically it relies on compliance, of course, to substances regulation. That's a basic. Transparency also, because it's important for our clients and anyone around Schneider to access to environmental information of our products. For example, the environmental impact we disclose through our environmental product declarations. It's life cycle assessment of our products.
Yep.
And finally, the third pillar of Green Premium is performance, with 6 main claims around repairability, durability, circular design, or design to be repairable, for example.
I see. Okay, great. Okay, so it's clearly been a central part of what you've been doing recently. So, RS, Andrea or Debbie, how about yourselves? What has been the fundamental change inside your organisation?
So I think we've seen a real focus on purpose and ESG, particularly over the last 2 years, and really accelerated in that space. And I think we see it in sustainability in 2 parts. So what we can do within our own organisation to be cleaner and greener. So, for example, we have 14 distribution centres globally. So how can we make those on their pathway to net zero? So more solar panels, better energy management, lower carbon heating, and also things like greener and more sustainable packaging, and changes to the way we deliver our packages and products as well. But we're thinking about that now in a much broader context about how we can help our customers to be more sustainable through, clean technologies and, products that have been more sustainably made throughout the life cycle, as well as products that help our customers to kind of save energy, save water, save compressed air. And we see, we're at this really exciting place in the global industrial value chain between, our suppliers and our customers, and, suppliers like Schneider, who are really focusing on the development of clean technologies and green products, and how can we actually advocate those to our customers. So that's a really exciting place, and Debbie's actually doing a lot of work on that at the moment about how we develop those kind of future greener and more sustainable solutions.
Great. Okay. And presumably for all of these processes to be a success, there really has needed to be a top-down support for sustainability inside the organisation. So does it come from up high?
So I can chime in on that. So I report directly to Lindsley Ruth, who's the CEO of our company. We've got ESG committee meetings, which includes a non-executive board director. And we also report regularly to our board. So there's a keen focus. I think Andrea mentioned purpose-led culture within our company. We've got a lot of momentum, a lot of people that are engaged and excited to be engaged. But at the same time, we've got the top of the house, very top of the house, bringing it down throughout the organization as well. So we've got both top down and bottom up coming together.
Great, thank you, Debbie.
And for us at IGUS, I'd say it's very similar, Debbie. It's interesting. We have an overarching 3 goals for the company, which are very, very high level. And one of those is to be CO2 neutral by 2025. So how do we implement that throughout the business? Well, we all use the OKR model, objectives and key results, and everybody in management will have one objective and key result, which is green. And the way that we measure that and make sure that we're actually accountable to ourselves is that in the UK, for example, we got our ISO 14001 accreditation in 2010. That's a great incremental tool. It sometimes feels smaller steps than we'd like to be taking, but it's just fantastic when we look back and see where we are now in terms of the reductions in recycling, or the fact we're at 0% to landfill for a while now, how we change our fleet for vehicles, those kind of things which do have an impact. So we have that very overarching goal, which is very simple words, but then into accountable key results, and then accountable to proper audit outside of that with the ISO standard. That's how we've done that here in the UK.
Thank you, Justin. And obviously your organisation, IGUS, energy chains, cables, bearings, primarily in plastic as a material.
Yeah.
So there must have been some intense efforts internally in terms of recycling and thinking about plastics as a material and what you can do with it after life. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's true. There are 2 sides to this. So plastics, being a plastic parts manufacturer, has been occasionally sort of uncomfortable in terms of the people's perception is that plastic is bad, and we have this message that we have to get across, which is that that engineering plastics that are used correctly basically will give longer life, and they remove things like lubrication completely from the environment, because we use self-lubricating plastics. That's the parts that we make,
and efficient to produce as well. Yeah, Justin.
And efficient to produce, exactly. Yes, when you look at metal parts, the huge amount more energy to produce metal parts, and all of these messages that actually a lot of the time people don't necessarily understand, and that's a big education for us to show that just intrinsically our parts do have a good story to them. But yeah, as you say, when we start off with things like we're very, very strong on guaranteed life for our products, so guaranteeing 3 years or 10 million movements, these kind of things for cables, for cable management, bearings, so that customers know they don't have to throw them away early, or that they're not going to underuse them, shall we say. Yeah. And then we're evolving that into then what we call smart plastics, adding sensors into the materials and into the parts to say this is a 25% through the life or 50% through the life. So that's something we're really getting into now. So again, that customers don't underuse the product. And then, as you said, the end of life, we're tackling that now with recycling. So we developed a recycling program a couple of years ago. We're starting getting into that now, and the big breakthrough this year. So we collected 50 tons of material since then from customers. We give them a route back into us, and we can then recycle that. And now we're into proper product recycling, in that we've developed a process whereby we can clean the material and have it back to its virgin state, and then go completely circular. So we now have 2 ranges of our smaller energy chains, which we use a material called Igamid CG, and we call this cradle chain, the idea of cradle to cradle. And this is something we're developing now into truly circular, so it can collect the material back and actually make it into the same thing again. But all of those different things are important. They're all incremental changes, as well as the overarching message. As Andrea said, that plastics actually have their place, and we mustn't just assume that everything in that realm is bad, because it absolutely isn't. It's a very positive message if used correctly.
Great, thank you, Justin. Particularly interested in the smart sensors there, and we'll come on to IoT and how that can be used for heads-up intelligence on how products are performing and how they're wearing out, and therefore extending their life. So we'll come on to that in a while. So, Michael, over to yourself. How about your organisation? How is sustainability being driven through what you do today?
Well, we as Würth Electronic ISOs are a part of Würth Electronic Group, and this belongs to the Würth Group. And in the Würth Group, we have more than 80,000 employees. And sure, from the top, we already have a good sustainability strategy. And now the work is that all companies which belong to this group, that they find their way and their challenges, how they can master them in the future. And there, for us especially, as Swiss Electronic ISOs, we have the challenge in the electronic branch together like other participants today, no matter where you belong in the supply chain, if you are a service provider, if you are a component manufacturer, you all have the challenge that the customer requirements increase, and as well that your colleagues and employees, your target group also in your company, that they also request for more sustainability and actions. And that's the reason why in our company, it's like the top management has a clear strategy where we want to go. For example, we want to have CO2 neutrality in 2024. And then also all employees are invited to take part in workshops to help to work on this focus topic, sustainability.
Yeah. And do you find there is a lot of take up internally amongst your workers to input into the sustainability agenda?
Yes, and the challenge is really to find out what's the clear line or the target group at the moment having for requirements. We see, for example, from customers like RS Components that it's getting more and more important that, for example, material declines is done perfectly according to the official requirements. And then additionally, customers, they ask for products with less substances of very high concern. And this helps, of course, if you design out these substances, that your products become more suitable or more greener for the recycling or for the participation in the circle economy. And on the other side, you still have your colleagues and employees and your challenges in your infrastructure, that energy prices are increasing, that you have to think about which energy source do you use in future, especially with the crisis what we have at the moment. And there it comes to the top that you have to invest in renewable energy. And that's, for example, what we do. We implemented in the past already photovoltaic systems in Germany, or we plan it also in Europe, or as well also in China in our industrial parks. There it's also planned to increase photovoltaic systems.
Great. Thank you, Michael. Gisela, that's probably a good time to bring you into the conversation at Harting, because I believe there's been quite a lot of thought around renewable energy and those sorts of things within your organisation.
Yeah, okay, I will give you a twofold answer maybe. Justin just mentioned the importance of standardization and certifications. And when we see what is the main difference when we talk about CSR today and about sustainability maybe 20 or 15 years ago, this is that we need a systematic way. And I think management systems like ISO 40001, ISO 26000, or when we talk about health and safety, they are really of importance. And what we do is that we've got these management systems all over the world in all our entities, and with that we ask for audits. That means that we have an external person that takes a look at our processes and can say, okay, this process is in accordance, because we've got the system behind to define goals, to implement it in our processes and continuous improvement. This is the first part of the answer. The other part of the answer is a more personal one, because, we are a family-owned company, and all family members are hunters. So they have a special relationship to nature. And this is something I know Dietmar Harting now for more than 17 years. He always says the Limits of Growth was a book he read, and it changed his attitude. And what he did in this time afterwards was that he invested in biomethane, that he invested in things like wind energy, in photovoltaic. And nowadays we've got green energy here in Germany. And as Michael already mentioned, now our challenge is that we go worldwide, that in Asia, in USA, where we've got totally different situation when we talk about the energy mix, that we have more renewable energy. And this is something we rely on, we want to focus on in future.
Great. Thank you very much, Gisela. So, Lennart, you've waited very patiently there. So did the answers resonate in terms of what your organisation is the activities that your organisation are participating in?
Yeah, I can just perfectly agree on what the colleagues said earlier before. Taking one step back, what Phoenix Contact believes in is this vision of the all-electric society, what we call it. A vision of the future where primary energy will be electric energy by renewable energies, like the colleagues already mentioned, photovoltaics, wind, water supplies. And the key factor for this will be, of course, making the world a little bit smarter with smart products. And I think there was quite some interesting ideas in the conversation so far, because there are two key messages there. One will be everybody has to produce products in a greener, more sustainable way. And the second side, or second perspective, will be making smart products for the future, because only downsizing abilities and requirements not working. We need some smart products with some smart components for the future to enable this. And this is actually what we're targeting for. And on the way how to do so, I can just agree with the colleagues. Yes, we did the same, setting up a management system on the CEO level, not really on our chief operators, for worldwide setup with targets. It's also implemented in our purpose as well. So setting up on a very high level so everybody can identify to this topic. And actually, there's a huge, very good reputation within our employees. They love the topics, they love working for this, because, obviously it's for good future. If you can participate in such an idea, in such a vision, it's just giving good mood to start working and do maybe the extra mile as well.
Great, thank you, Lennart. You mentioned smart products there, and I thought that's a pertinent point, because that's obviously a critical part of sustainability. Greener, smarter products, really, and that comes down as much to people as it does technology. You need to have people inside your organisation, engineers that are challenging conventional wisdom, seeking new approaches to old problems. So how do you go about empowering your technical teams to think about sustainability and start to develop smarter products? Is that one you want to take there, Lennart?
Yeah, it's a very good point. This is a new dimension when you talk about designs, about technical requirements. Now we need to talk about skills. So when thinking about a new product and the requirements this product should fulfill, it's not now only the technical perspective, making a smart electronic product, but also a second perspective, making it in a green-friendly way, sustainable way. So it's a new dimension coming in there. And actually, we need to engage the people, everybody in his daily business, by taking into consideration this new perspective. So when we start designing a product, thinking about functions, thinking about materials, about purchase and transportation, all that stuff, there's always a second perspective. How can we do so within a sustainable way? What's the perfect way of combining both of it? And of course, thinking for the customer. What's the real application we want to focus on, and how to use it, enable it in the perfect best way on 3 dimensions: environmental, social, and governance, like the colleague said, keeping, of course, laws in mind, having social impacts in mind, and the environmental perspectives like carbon dioxide emissions in the production, transportation, but even within the usage later on when the product is installed in place. And then we'll keep it full functionality.
Fantastic. Thank you, Lennart. So I'm really interested in this point, though, to focus on how we change the mindsets of engineers, how we empower them to think differently. So, Andrea, perhaps I can come to you at RS. At Design Spark, obviously, 1 million members. So you speak to a lot of design engineers inside, possibly inside Design Spark. So where do you see those conversations happening in terms of empowerment?
Yeah, I think it starts at a really young age, actually, in primary school, secondary school, universities. The younger generation now is so aware of all the environmental challenges and social challenges we face. So they're already very much more purpose driven, I think, and really, want to use their STEM skills and their engineering and tech and innovation skills for good. So I think it's, making that an essential part of the kind of the learning curriculum. And at RS, we have a program called Grassroots, which is all about inspiring that next generation of engineers and innovators to, really think about how they can use their skills to solve those environmental and social challenges. We go into universities, we provide products for learning, we offer mentoring, skills sessions, volunteering, that sort of thing. And then we also have our Design Spark platform, which is a sort of a community online platform of over 1 million kind of students, startups, innovators, hobbyists, makers, designers. So we're really engaging them in what we call activist engineering challenges. So that's like, what are the big environmental or social challenges of our day, and how can, a product or a service or solution tackle those? So like a great one, for example, was, this one of the participants designed this bear that kind of had this happy or sad face depending on what the air quality was in the surrounding room. So it was just brilliant. So it's just a great way of kind of, bringing that into the mindsets of young engineers and innovators at a very early age, so that when they're going into work in the future, that's just embedded in their mindset from the very beginning, and they're always thinking about, how can I make and design this product to be more sustainable, both in the way it's actually produced, but then also how it runs as well, and what's its afterlife, So I think, hopefully that gives you some good food for thought.
It's really interesting that when we're talking about the generational thing of particularly with looking at IoT and the benefits of that, which is where we started. It's also interesting that we see with some of our tools that we have, some of the smart sort of products that we have, our smart plastics as we call them, to enable to maximize the life of a product and save costs and also downtime within factories. It's interesting as you get into that, to leverage it, you need to tackle all sorts of other issues that we didn't see at the beginning, and maybe they're generational or maybe not, which is, for example, things like security of IT. So because we have a lot of data, we leverage AI a lot to do analysis of the parts that are running and to say, okay, we think you're at this point in the life. Our early adopters are the very high value production, so things like automotive factories, port cranes, things like this, that are adopting these smart plastic systems. But they're still very reticent to have these hooked up to the net and to do the full range of analysis and AI that we can use on them.
Sure.
And so we've had to develop extra sort of product streams that we didn't expect, which is going to be more standalone systems that can shut a system down or warn or help the engineers to pre-order what they're going to need to replace with, but in a standalone sense rather than in a completely open web-based sense. And we didn't necessarily expect that. We thought everybody would be rushing to use this technology, but there's still a reticence in some things again, and as Andrea said, it might be generational as well, but there are other things that we have to deal with, like security concerns and making sure we can do all of that, and now we've ended up there with the smart plastics where we can do it as absolutely standalone at the machine with the PLC, right through to a full cloud analysis and everything in between. But we had to do that because the early adopters had different concerns that we wouldn't have necessarily expected.
Okay, interesting. Thank you. Gisela, there's a point for you there, I think. If we think about collaboration, and as Justin's just started to talk around there, it does feel like there needs to be sort of greater collaboration amongst engineers to sort of really accelerate sustainability. So how has your organisation tried to achieve that? Through research alliances or new connections to try to get these conversations going?
Yeah, so I think there are different ways. Like everybody wants to go. What we did, for example, when we talk about single pair Ethernet, is really that we have got a network with designers, with research, with technology experts and things like that. And then you are able to produce a product, to produce a range of solutions where you reduce raw materials, where you use less cable, where you have got a higher energy efficiency and things like that. And I totally agree that it is really good to point out, like Andrea mentioned, to see what the younger generation brings with. But when I talk to my colleagues, I see they're so motivated because they see day by day what's happening outside and they really want to change it. And they say, we've got the technology, we are the experts, we know our connectivity solutions now for years or for generations sometimes. And they say, we can put it in, and when we've got networks and meet the people who are experts in things we are not, then we can generate really new solutions. And this is something like SB or other things we can do.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay. Michael, William, Lennart, are these conversations resonating with you?
I can absolutely agree to the colleague just said. One special point comes for me very clearly out. It's not just one person. It's not a project we need to start and accelerate and go further. It's more to the people with their everyday business. And it's a very interdisciplinary topic. There's everybody in there. We've been talking in this discussion about already the technical designers, the software experts, and even the guys from logistics, from production. Everybody's included in this topic because there are so many different points we need to impact on. So the biggest question and challenge will be to get the exchange between all of them, that they have the same level of understanding and activities within sustainability. So this is a new interdisciplinary topic for them, because they studied maybe technical perspectives and now they get a new perspective in there. So this is an interesting point for the future to make, to actually bring these ideas into their mind, the knowledge into their mind, and then establish it in the daily business where it belongs. Not a project by everyday business. Have good decisions and ideas in there so that they actually have the time for thinking on this new topic day by day when doing the daily work and seeing the potential they can actually do. We could never do this from a central perspective, but only within the decentral perspective by everybody participating in these ideas.
Fantastic, thank you.
That
Michael, William?
Lee, if you don't mind, that's a good link. Thank you, Lennart. Just to add on this, because we talk a lot about technology, softwares, designers, but sustainability, to our mind, and to my mind also, is it's a complex topic because it addresses many dimensions, and as people, not only as as workers at Schneider, but as people, we often hear, especially at this time, things around sustainability that are often shocking about climate, biodiversity, resources. So at Schneider, we took a survey beginning of this year on 8,000 employees, and more than 90% of them were eager to take action, but looking for some more awareness, knowledge around sustainability. So that's why we decided to launch what we call the Sustainability School at Schneider, that gathers more than 80 modules, 80 courses to learn more about sustainability and know which actions to take, both at home and at work, because sustainability is not only a working topic. It's how to be empowered at home and in our own personal lives. So that's the way we make the most to empower everyone at Schneider.
Lee, if I could chime in on a point here. What we've tried very hard to do, and I think successfully, is really embedding ESG into everything we do. It's not a sidebar strategy. It's not a side action plan. It is core to our business. Andrea mentioned purpose-led culture, but from a strategic perspective, from an actions perspective, from an initiative perspective, from a project perspective, it is in our business. So it really encourages people to have that top of mind because it's the foundation for everything we do all the time. And it's very, very core.
And that's when it becomes really genuine, I think, as well, when it's not just about sustainable engineering, it's about sustainable marketing, buying, recycling. It permeates through the whole organization and society. That's when we'll really start to see meaningful change, where it's with everyone and everyone takes responsibility, and it doesn't, just come back to ESG teams or sustainability. It's everyone feels empowered to make this change.
Yeah, playing sort of devil's advocate there, Andrea, I think it was fair to say in the past that perhaps some companies and organisations paid lip service towards sustainability, but it sounds like things have moved on. You can't do that anymore. It has to be embedded completely throughout the organisation. Yeah,
I absolutely think so. I think, there is a lot more compliance and, structure around it now to make sure that isn't the case. And there's, it has such an intense spotlight on it, this whole area, that it's obvious when there are claims that aren't genuine, and, companies and others get called out for greenwashing when you can't see the action that marks, the rhetoric. So.
Fantastic. Thank you. Yeah. Michael, you've waited patiently there. Was there a point you wanted to raise?
Yeah, I can just agree. We experienced the same situation. Everybody wants to be involved in this topic, but there are different opinions and ideas how to develop this. Yeah, you have the younger generation. They see it a little bit different because of their short history, I would say. And then you have experienced engineers with their individual priorities in their day-to-day business, directly in contact with the production line and with the customer. And for them, of course, to get a mind change is a little bit challenging at the beginning. From the youngest, you easily can absorb the energy from them. And then the challenge is how to bring it into your company. Sure, we as Swiss Electronic ISOs, we have a strategy from the top, but it only works if you bring them together. And my experience was we had small projects, like for example, was from some employees. They suggested if we were not able to repair, for example, defect products from the employees, and then they brought it into the company, young talents, for example, and then our engineers in the laboratory, they help to repair this. And then, of course, it's not our day-to-day business, but it helped to bring them together. And so they talked about this, and you could see that there was also tension in between, because the experienced engineers, they have a different thinking and a different spotlight on that. And this was the funny thing, what I experienced. You have to support all ideas at the end, because you have to absorb this energy, and then you bring also the change if you are creating a community. And this is what we did. But one thing I would like to add, at the end, you still need a supervisor system or a management system to give you some direction. That you, for example, like you can go with a environmental management system, 14001, or energy management system for this, because otherwise you will have too many ideas and suggestions, and you have to find your way for your company, for your customers, for your production line, and for your suppliers, and this will help you.
Great. Fantastic. Thank you. So that's interesting. So far, we've talked about what your organizations, your companies are doing around sustainability. And then we've tried to sort of weave in how your people are thinking about it. But there's another big group of people we haven't talked about so far, and that is the end users of products, really. So I'm interested in repairability, product circularity, those sorts of issues. How do we move away from having a society that is a throwaway society? Your mobile phone, after a couple of years, you expect to have a new one, even though that phone still exists and still works. So is there a mindset change that also needs to take place amongst consumers, do you think, if we are to move towards product circularity and a reduction in waste? Who would like to take that one?
Yeah, maybe I can go first and the colleagues will add on in. I would like just to add on what Justin said a couple of minutes earlier today. The customer has a very good and important impact now, because the products, once they leave our hands and go to the customers, we hopefully see them in the future again. In the past, they've been throwing away and we lost this valuable materials. And I think with the circular economy, it's very important to get into contact with our customers, because the material they're using, as what Justin just said, for example, plastics, the same for brass, for metals, for copper, for steel, whatever, name it. It's very important to get back these materials into our supply chain. And there's a second perspective as well. When we talk with our customers about requirements, as soon as we get the real idea of what is the real requirement, you brought up the example of your smartphone, what does a smartphone really need to do? If we understand the requirements we are having as well in an industrial area, we can design exactly to this requirement. Giving us some flexibility on what the requirement really is, we can design on what material to use and how to bring in even more green alternatives or other materials in there, or even the perspective of the engine, perfectly adapt to this new requirements in there. So the customer is really key for the value chain, for the material flows, and also for the requirements and the real design to green, let's call it, how we design the products for him that perfectly fits to his applications and can use, of course, green materials and circular economy available materials as well.
Yep.
One thing that's really vital that we do as well is we have to be brutally honest that people will not spend extra money either as businesses or individuals to do these things. Of course, there's a feel good, there's a sense of doing the right thing, but if that comes at a price, people will not adopt it. And our challenge, of course, is we have to do both. We have to find that amazing sweet spot where we give them something which is the right price to make their businesses as our customers sustainable, but also to do that good work for sustainability in the widest sense. And that's the challenge. So some of the time that's educating. Look, if you purchase this, it's talking about whole life costs. Of course, I'm sure we're all engaged in those kind of discussions, looking at whole life costs rather than price, and discussions that we have to have with our customers in that regard. But we have to be mindful that we have to be very, very good at doing that at the right price. And so when we look at our recycle chain, as I said just now, this is something we had to fight really hard to get it to a point where it works at the same price. We're not quite at the point where it will be cheaper because of various economies of scale and various things that are happening. Now, in the future, that will happen. But I know that if we have a product which is more expensive for that, we probably won't sell so much. There might be targets that will help customers meet, and this is our great challenge. We're squeezed here as manufacturers. We're challenged, I should say, to do both of those things so that it becomes a no-brain decision, and then the take-up becomes really fast and really, really good.
I think the third point too, Justin, is convenience. Convenience for the user. So if it's complex or very difficult to get something repaired or to return or whatever, it's not going to happen. So I fully agree. It's cost related, but also convenience related.
That's very true. Yeah. Good point.
Yeah. To add a last one on what you say, guys, because I fully agree with you. Price, convenience, and also access to the product or delivery time. I mean, we at Schneider we all faced it. We faced some shortages in terms of resources last year, and we're still facing them. And since a couple of years, we started to look at circular business models, because circularity, when we are actually working on setting our circularity strategy. I'm working on it. I'm leading the job on that. And we found that circularity is all about value retention. So it's not only recycling. I mean, recycling should be the last thing to do. Then before that, to retain the value, we could reuse the products, repurpose them, refurbish, remanufacture. So we started implementing some pilot business models on that, especially on refurbishing and remanufacturing, And we found that it was, apart from price, because then we take back the product. So that's one of the major issues is be able to take back some high volumes of products in order to feed the factories that are able to refurbish and remanufacture. But anyway, we succeeded in pilots in that. And then we started refurbishing and remanufacturing some products, which were interesting in terms of price, interesting in terms of quality, because it was, for the remanufactured one, as good as new. Same level of quality, same level of performance, safety, and all that. And then the lead time to get the products was very shorter, because then you don't suffer about supplying resources. You don't have to ship the goods and all that. The products are ready to be delivered to the clients, and that was a very good value to bring to the customers.
Yeah,
I see.
We had a very similar example, William, with our single board computers, where the raw materials were in short supply, and we didn't have the products. So we launched a refurbishment scheme for it's our Raspberry Pi, which is the kind of coding a single board computer, and it makes perfect sense, because that is an item that can easily be refurbished. It's a bit like like an iPhone. So I think starting with those products where it does make sense, and it is convenient for the customer, and it is feasible for the manufacturer to actually refurbish that product, and then you start to build your understanding of how to do this, that you can then apply to other products that you offer and in the supply chain. And then that is what gathers momentum, I think. It's like the more we do it, the more we change cultures and the more we change mindsets. And actually it makes so much business sense as well, because you're creating then that long-term relationship rather than a single kind of transactional product relationship. You're taking that back and resupplying it, and then you have a much longer, stickier term relationship with your customers, because you become a service provider, not just a product supplier. Yeah,
that's circularity, the product circularity mindset, Andrea. I mean, that's quite a shift away from the linear model of make, use, and dispose. So, I mean, are you seeing that transition amongst Design Spark and other conversations you have really starting to accelerate? So people are thinking about repairability, recyclability, and all of those good things.
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing it, because we have the perspective of either end of the value chain. So we see the customer demand for that service, and likewise we see the action by the the original manufacturer to make those changes. But it does it's slow and it does need to speed up, and we need to be thinking about circularity at every stage of the industrial life cycle. So
Yes.
the design phase, the distribution, the running, the maintenance. And I think that the more smart technology and IoT that we have, the better we can get at it. Like, I always love the example of HP printers, that are obviously smart and connected. They know when your recycling cartridges are running low. You get them instantly through the post with a recycling bag that says, right, send us back your old recycling cartridges to be recycled, with a lovely little note about their commitments to sustainability. So it's that sort of thing that we need to see more of, because then that customer is delighted,
Yes.
with that service, and wants to do that more and more.
Yeah, fantastic.
The other thing is packaging. So, right, packaging is the same topic. Is how do we, first of all, use less packaging? How do we protect our products with less packaging? But for that packaging that we use, how do we reuse it? And I just want to share interesting input that I just got yesterday. I was at a customer visit, and we're very proud at our own actions in reducing packaging. And we've got a number of sites that have auto pack machines. And what that means is, instead of using a bigger box and stuffing it with dunnage to protect the product, you build the box using flat corrugate around the product, so it's smaller. And we're very proud of that. And we've had significant reduction in waste because of that. However, just received input yesterday from a customer that they were disappointed in that, because they used to reuse our boxes for their own products, and now they're not reusable. So interesting. So we've got to think about that balance. Not only was it helping our customers, but it was also encouraging reusability.
Sure.
So an interesting point that I just wanted to share.
It's always like you, as we know in sustainability, you fix one point, and then you realise it's had a knock-on effect in another area of the product life cycle.
Absolutely. I could see you nodding there, Gisela. So let's have your perspective here. Have you had to work closely with customers to try to sort of enhance and build circularity into what you do?
Yeah, so maybe I want to add one point. When we take a look at the whole value chain, then we have to talk about the supply chain, and we really have to focus, by example, on metals, that we get recycled metals. And this is something, when we talk about copper or our aluminium, where we today have the chance to do this, and I think we have to focus this, because our customer wants to know the whole process. And this is something you already introduced. We did a project with a big customer about a product carbon footprint calculation. And the idea behind this project was not only that he gets our footprint, he really wanted to know how we did it. So we get into our production, take a look at all the different machines and all the different things we used. We take a look at the suppliers and so on. But in the review, when we took a look at the project, it was 9 months long. It took us more than 6 months, and it was already mentioned before, to speak the same language, to really distinguish between a corporate carbon footprint and a product carbon footprint, to differentiate between Scope 1 to 3, to see, okay, is it cradle to cradle, is it cradle to gate? Do we really want the same thing? Do we really want to have the same granularity? And talking about this, and this is what you mentioned, William, having it schooling, training is something really important. The calculation was not the problem. The problem really was that we've got the same mindset, that we really have both the same goal. It's so easy to say we calculate the product carbon footprint and then we see how it works, but this was not the idea behind, to really have an atmosphere, and it was a real trustful atmosphere with our customer. We said, okay, you can have an insight in our production, everything you want to know, and he gave us insight in his calculation and things like that. And this is something I really want to highlight. This kind of cooperation is the thing where I learned the most, because people open their heart, They say, okay, what they really want and why they want to do this, and they start to discuss. And then we can start to negotiate and say what is of importance now, in future, and what it is tomorrow. And this is something I really highlight.
I just can agree on that. It's really important that you speak the same language. Yeah. Overall, everybody will say they want to go greener and they have big sustainability targets. And then they start with that. And we experience this. The customer starts with that. And then they come to us, to the supply chain, because they find out the scope 3 is a big portion of that. And then they come to us. And we see the requirements, what we get, and then we try to orientate on that. And then you find out, it's not too easy, at the beginning. And first you have to develop your own engineers. Then you have to find out what's really the requirement, what you can maybe do with some management systems, like energy management systems, and where you can do, or what's additional coming. Then you see it in the supply chain that not only the pillar of sustainability is important, also the social responsibility, and that they want to assure that they have further supply chain. And then they bring in the risk management. And this is what, if you work both on that, for example, when we started with energy management systems, and then it totally helped up at the current times. It was easy to identify already where is your supply chain, where is your maximum energy consumption, so that you also can do easily implementations for risk preventive, to support the supply chain. And the same is with material and resources. If you know it from suppliers, from procurement, you normally you try second sourcing. You look for different materials, alternatives, to assure that you have your source. And now you get additional requirements, sustainability, and there to find the best mix. That's a little bit the challenge at the moment.
Some fantastic answers there, and I'm going to challenge you even harder now, I think, because I'm going to sort of ask you to expand your minds as we try to address some of the mega trends around sustainability. So obviously the climate emergency is at the forefront of most people's minds. It's taken on an ever greater urgency, and so we have a global transition towards net zero, but it's not going to be easy. So how do we get there? What are the blockers? Is it even feasible? What do you think about that? William, maybe I can come to you first. Net zero by 2050. Is that possible?
Yes, it's possible, but it has to be progressive. I'll try to be sharp because, we don't share slides, but I have one in front of me, the net zero commitment from Schneider. It's been recently recognized by the Science-Based Target Initiatives. And we are, I think at the time we became recognized, it was 60 companies of which the climate engagement, the net zero engagement, was recognized by the Science-Based Target Initiative. So it's very strong. But by the way, it has to address scope 3. Michael, you mentioned that. I think scope 3 upstream. So talking about suppliers, raw materials, our own operations, our customers, so that's our scope 3 downstream, the energy consumption of our products, for example. And then we have different programs in those 3 areas, upstream, own operations, and downstreams. And there we have a 2030 commitment, which is to be net zero in our own operations, to basically a net zero. There are many definitions, but the ones from the SBTI, Science-Based Target Initiative, is 90% reduction and then CO2 offset for the rest. So it's a very limited share of CO2 offsets, which is very important. It's very different from carbon neutral. And then by 2040, our commitment is to be carbon neutral for the end-to-end value chain of Schneider. So you see that's a first step to reduce the maximum we can, but to rely also on offsets, CO2 offsets. And then a 2050 net zero commitment for the whole value chain. So then it goes, if I may add just a few words, it goes through our program that we called Green Materials, Green Packaging, also on our own operations, to talking about energy efficiency of our factories, supplying renewable energy for all our factories, and then for the scope 3 downstream, eco-designing our products to enhance their energy efficiency, of course.
Yes, I see. So it's a real, it's a multifaceted approach, and it's a phased approach over a long term. Is
Yep.
that something that the rest of the attendees, the participants, recognise? Talk me through some of your similar journeys that you're on at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's, that is the gold standard model, without a doubt. Like really addressing your own operations first of all, and having a nearer term target for net zero for your direct operations, because that is within your control, and also nearly all of the technologies exist to make that happen. So renewable power, decarbonisation of heat, decarbonisation of transport as well.
Yes.
Granted, that there are developments that still need, major developments that still need to be made in terms of
Yep.
supply chain and cost and everything, but it's all there, plotted out to 2030. So, and emissions obviously need to peak by 2030 as well. So I think that is the gold standard for the direct operations. And then I think it is, looking into the value chain. How can you work with your suppliers and your customers to emulate that net zero commitment within the value chain? For us, we don't manufacture anything, unlike Schneider. So what we're doing is about advocacy. Advocacy with our suppliers to design and manufacture products that are more sustainable and use less carbon. Whether it's in their production or embodied carbon, or things like working with our third-party logistics providers, and encouraging them to set science-based targets and think about, the technology and innovation they're going to need to develop to decarbonize their logistics. But then also, how can we work together to, actually switch modes or switch routes, source products closer to suppliers and customers and deliver them closer to customers, so you're actually, traveling less distance. So I think every business is different, isn't it? And you need to work out what are the most material areas for your business, and then really, have a strategy and a plan for really driving down carbon in those areas.
Yeah,
fantastic. Lee, if you don't mind, I would add a few words, because the supplier side is very interesting. I mean, I mentioned, and you mentioned it also, Andrea, to be net zero on our own operations. It's a way also for us to test our products and digital technologies to reduce the energy consumption, monitor the energy use, and then we launch in parallel the zero carbon program with 1,000 of our suppliers, teaching them, training them on decarbonizing their own operations. So you see, it's a way to transfer the knowledge on our factories to the suppliers so that they can decarbonize also. And then that's a way to help us meet our CO2 targets.
Absolutely.
Yes,
and I think, we shouldn't be afraid to think in that mindset, which is there are opportunities here. It's not all about challenges and costs. There are opportunities to reduce costs and to develop products and services in that low carbon transition. And if we think about it as more of an opportunity, then people will be more compelled to prioritize it.
Yes.
Andrea, that's exactly what I was going to say. And just to expand on that a bit, I mean, part of your question, Lee, was what are the blockers? Is everybody needs to participate in this, but not all governments are, not all businesses are. I mentioned talking to a customer yesterday. I've talked to a bunch of companies as we've been formulating our solutions business, and there are many companies that just don't know how to get there. So it is the helping suppliers and the training and that kind of thing. But it's a significant opportunity. We hear a lot about recession. What is that going to do? It could stop investment, but I would argue that now's the time to really take advantage of that and get in front of it. And the companies that invest smartly and invest and be true to their purpose will be the companies that come out of the recession better off. So yes, we've got headwinds in front of us, but let's use it as an opportunity versus a blocker.
Yes, I see. Okay, Gisela, let me bring you in there. I mean, we've heard from the round table. It's complex. There's lots of jigsaw pieces that need to be put in place, whether that's internal resources, supply chains, logistics. So how does this move to net zero feel to you? It sounds complex to me.
Yeah, it is complex. I think that is something what we have to handle because that's life, yeah. And this is what we all do when we've got family, when we run our company or things like that. I think when we talk about CO2, we've got a global goal. We have the Paris Agreement, and this is totally clear what we want to reach until 2030. And this is something when we talk about CO2, we've got standards behind. We have ISO standards, we have the Greenhouse Gas Protocol, and now we have to live this. We have to fulfill this. This is something we do. We do all as companies, we do it together. We work in associations and things like that. But Debbie, you already mentioned we talk about ESG. So we have other topics we have to talk about as well. When we talk about environmental issues, and I take a look at the ISO standard, or I take a look, by example, at the sustainable finance or the reporting directive that are coming from the European Commission, then we have other categories as well. We have to talk about water. Yeah, it was a real dry summer here in Germany. And water is our new currency. This is my opinion, yeah. Now it is CO2, but in a few years it will change. We will talk about water, we will talk about biodiversity and things like that. And we have to manage this. And when I see how complex the CO2 discussion is, it took me months to really get inside. And now I see the other topics are coming as well, yeah. Well, I will never go to sleep. That this is something that has happened, and I'm not doing this on my own. This is why I
Always
really
learning.
highlight. Yeah, that's it. Always learning. This is why I highlight networks. I want to talk to my colleagues inside because they've got the technological perspective. I've got the outside network because these are the experts when I talk about water or talk about human rights or other topics. And I think this is something that makes it so really spectacular. Yeah, it's wonderful to work with this. Yeah, because it's amazing. Every day you've got a new thing you can learn, and you really learn a lot of things. But sometimes you have to say, okay, I have to find a structure, and this is why we need standards behind, why we need systems behind, and that we agree. Because when we say CO2 or sustainability in future will be our currency, then we all have the same rules to follow. And this is something that we have to negotiate. And I think this is good that we've got a network like this today to discuss this and see where we are, what we want to do in future, and how we can strengthen our commitment.
I think that is really important about that. There's this plethora of different ESG issues that we're all grappling with. And that's why it's really important, both at a company level and an engineering level, to understand what are your most material issues. But as a business, is water a material issue to your business, or do you have a big impact on land and biodiversity? And actually, focus your resources on where you can make the biggest difference as a company or as an engineer, and that will allow you to be more focused and more impactful with your outcomes.
Fantastic. Thank you, Andrea. Lennart, the last person really for this question. So there's been some real sort of passion around the table here in terms of how much of an opportunity this is really. Is that how you see net zero and the transition going forward?
Yes, I can just agree with the colleagues. Two perspectives. One is, I just think it's necessary for the future. There won't be any business model in the future anymore if it's not a sustainable business model. So it's really key to become part of this and actually to implement this into your companies, your structures, your thinking. And I also think that at the moment there might be invests in technology, invests in new processes, but these invests are just temporary. By time, this will become the new standard process we are using, and even on a financial perspective, processes which are at least at the same level as they are today. The second perspective for me is the change. And the change is for me the most important point for the time being, because it can't be done by a single company. We can't completely change the value chain. We really need to communicate with our suppliers and customers. Give an example. Right today, it's quite hard to find carbon neutral flight. Sea flights, lorries, easier, but flying is still challenging because there are no electronic flights at the moment, at least not intercontinental. So we need to talk really with our suppliers, our customers, because if you give me a ring tomorrow and say, hey, I need the product tomorrow in Asia, I will have a challenge to bring it there in time. So if you give me a couple of days more, then we can actually find a new way, another process to bring it in there. So for example, demand management is really key for this logistics. So the exchange of products between our companies to have some more time, flexibility to find a carbon neutral way to do so. This is the key. It's not about one company. We have a very good grip on our own activities, putting PV on the solar roofs and so on. But actually the change within the processes is key. And I think this is all about communication, bringing together some really creative, good talents and thinking in different ways, other ways, smart ways, with smart products, to find a way how to adapt to these new processes and these new kinds of communication. I think this is key for net zero then, and then it will become true.
Great, thank you, Lennart. There was a word that you used several times there, and it was change. And it's quite clear that we are in a period now of enormous change as we understand sustainability and really what it means for all aspects of our business. And one aspect of the business is going to be the skill sets that you need inside your organisation. They are going to change as we start to move forward. We are going to need different people from different disciplines, different backgrounds, as we try to drive sustainability forward. So what does that mean in terms of recruitment and people coming into your organisation? I'm interested in how you're actively seeking out new people, new ideas in your organisation to push sustainability forward. Justin, perhaps I can start with you. I think you've had some success, for example, with apprenticeships.
Yes, apprenticeships is something that maybe we were a bit later to, but has really been working for us in recent years. So I think at last count, we're about 10% in terms of our workforce are in apprenticeships in different areas. We're also constantly reformulating our recruitment strategy, where we look. We had a very traditional view in the past of, particularly for our sales teams, people with engineering backgrounds, and realizing that we were missing so many opportunities for people with different views. And again, sort of sustainability is part of that, not just looking at a linear view, shall we say. And yeah, we've evolved a lot in terms of where we recruit, how we recruit, and that has opened up a much wider pool of people in the team, and the team is much richer for it, and we've gained so much more expertise in sustainability, but in lots of other areas as well. That I think has been a very good thing for us. Yeah.
So we have an early careers program. You mentioned apprentices. We also have internships. And university students that are coming in, that through those programs and in those programs, there's a much bigger interest in sustainability and social responsibility. I think, I'll call them the kids have been kind of brought up that way, and there's a much bigger interest. So it's important that we have programs within the company that attracts them. So we do have the apprenticeships, we do have the internships, but they need to know that we're a purpose-led company. They need to know that we've got sustainability and ESG embedded in our strategies, and it's very foundational. And we want to make a difference. And, our purpose, making amazing happen for a better world, we're very sincere about that, but that is also an attraction for folks coming into the organization. I have, I'm putting a personal example on it. I'm a mother of two 20-something daughters that recently graduated from university. And yes, pay is important, but purpose and contribution to society is way more important to them than that.
That's an interesting phrase. Pay more than purpose. So it feels like there's been a sort of slight change in the balance of what people are looking for. They want more than just a salary. They want a real career, and they want to feel like they're doing something for good. Is that something that the rest of the participants see when you were recruiting people into your business?
May I add something? Sure, we see this on our side as well, and I personally see sometimes the challenge that everybody is quite open. Everybody wants to bring his input and ideas to support the sustainability strategies, but the challenge is to bring your core business together with this input from the young talents. Yeah, and this sometimes is really a challenge what we have here. And I agree also to the others. If you looking for new positions and you want to recruit young talents, if you have projects with sustainability, you quite fast have them on board. But then the tricky parts come to develop this. Yeah. And therefore, you really need your change in your company, that your engineers are open and that they listen to the requirements and ideas and views from the young talents, but also the young talents, for them, it's a good opportunity to develop their self a little bit into the right way that they understand there's additional pillars of sustainability which they need to consider. And this is sometimes the thing where we say, yes, there you need more training. And as a short example, in our group, in the Würth group, we have an academy, and we found that also out, and that there additional knowledge is needed. And so we offer as well schools or classes where you can get a graduate, an internal one in the subject of sustainability. And what I personally experience also in my work field, I also receive from customers or like from RS Components or others that they want to develop the supply chain. Yeah, and this is also what we can use from our side as supplier to listen to our customers. What do they want to have, and how can we bring the young generations and our engineers directly together to this customer requirements, to think about this and how to find a solution together with them as a partner. And then you have projects and corporations which help you in this case.
Yeah. Lee, can I add a few words on that?
Absolutely.
Fully agree on the young talents, and even myself, I was a young talent in sustainability, but it was in 2008, so it's a bit far for now. But today we see many engineering schools, many business schools holding a degree in sustainability and very advanced. The people are very well skilled. Another topic to address also is sustainability is a deep transformation, a change. And then there are also insiders, like talents existing in the company. We value it a lot at Schneider. People that very well know the company, very well know the operations, have their internal network. So they are very powerful. The only thing they miss is being skilled in sustainability. But we have many people internally at Schneider switching from operational roles or management or anything not related to sustainability, but because they have a strong passion in sustainability, they get trained and they get involved in the big sustainability players network in Schneider. And that's a very good way to speed up sustainability, because those people, in a second, they know the company, so they know how to operate it. And once they have understood what is sustainability, they directly know how to embed it in their everyday business.
So, Andrea, can I ask you, would you agree that sustainability is a way of not only attracting people into the organisation, but very much about retaining people as well?
Absolutely. And the point that William was just making, I think about how we've, established that strong ESG and sustainability network, and we're really thinking about, okay, how in procurement do, they develop skills around ESG so that when they're talking to suppliers, they're thinking about, okay, having discussions about what's your carbon reduction bin, or have you set science-based targets, so that they're as comfortable having those discussions as they would be about, finance or performance or quality. It's just an essential part of the kind of the business makeup now, and everyone needs to be able to talk that language and understand it. So I think it is about truly embedding it and building skills throughout an organisation. And the other point I wanted to make was just about seeing sustainability in the broadest sense when thinking about attracting talent. So yes, environmental sustainability, but also social sustainability, both in terms of, inclusion, impact on communities and societies, but also, your people's own individual well-being, and where and how they want to work in a more flexible and sustainable way that's better for their work-life balance. So I think it's not just about that green and environmental sustainability. It's about how do we create that more kind of sustainable, inclusive, fairer world of work in the future.
Sure.
And I think a lot of young people are looking for that today, and it sits on an equilibrium with pay and purpose and things.
Yes. Great, fantastic. Any more input into the skills agenda? That's an important part of sustainability.
I think at the university level, I'd love to see more application of technical skills in the engineering curriculums. I think our universities are teaching sustainability. We have students that come into the workforce with that very much ingrained, but I'd love it to be applied more at university level. So an example of that, we're involved with Engineers Without Borders, and they've had true challenges, societal challenges that students are asked to apply their technical skills to, like how to get water to people, how do you have sanitation, how do you have sustainable farming for those rural communities that really need it. And I was very impressed with that because it has real life societal challenges, but having students with technical skills apply those skills to those challenges. And I'd like to see universities do more of that.
Yes, yeah, good point, Debbie. Yeah, okay. Fantastic. Okay, well, I think we are probably moving towards the final question really today. So, because we've covered an enormous area of topic really so far, and I'd like you to sort of take a look to the future in a way. It's putting you on the spot slightly. So, have there been any new technologies or processes around sustainability that have really excited you, that have made you think this is going to make a difference moving forward? I know that's a tricky question. I think Justin, you, for example, inside IGUS, you have these moonshot ideas where you actually think about exactly that sort of thing. What are the new coming technologies that are going to make a real difference? So perhaps you could expand on that.
Yeah, and maybe an alternative way of looking at that is also what can you leverage that you already do really well that you maybe haven't realised. You know, we get very fixated on our sectors, on what we are traditionally doing, but it can also be that we have something to say in another sector and we need to be brave and step out into that. And so a couple of things sort of more recently, we one of the ideas, the sort of moonshot ideas, has been the IGUS bike. And this was, again, we were looking at, well, actually, can we leverage something totally outside of what we would normally do, which is supplying component parts into something and look at it more holistically. And we're developing it's a platform-based approach. And again, we talked earlier about communication between parties, and it's interesting that platform seems becoming a bigger thing for us now, actually, in terms of how we develop new ideas. But the idea of a bike which has no metal parts, no lubrication, and that's something we could leverage all that we've learned for many, many years since 1964, and we can do it. And we've looked at, brakes, freewheel, gear, crank, chain, everything. It's all plastic. And we're developing this idea, and we've got prototypes now, and we just remove completely the metal parts there and therefore the lubrication that goes with it. And then we're starting to partner through this platform with a company called MTRL in the Netherlands, who have developed ideas of making the frame and the wheels out of ocean plastic. So the sort of catchy ocean plastics to motion plastics sort of idea. But taking something where our dream would be to have factories where we provide the sort of the engineering parts, the moving parts to that, and then you can build a factory making bikes anywhere where you have a source of ocean plastics or just standard recycled plastics, and build them there. And so that's a really interesting thing that we're getting into. And again, it's not necessarily that it's massively new, but we just are leveraging what we learned and start to look really more widely than where we traditionally looked, and see what can we bring to something, and something that could be revolutionize an industry completely for transportation, and how something is made, and making it locally to where there is a waste source and so on. So that's an example of something like that we're looking to do, and it's really exciting and
fantastic
new idea. Yeah.
How many of these bikes have you made? Is it one prototype?
We've got a handful. I was over in Cologne last week in the factory, and I was told strictly not to ride it, but we all had a go. Really, really interesting. So these will be commute bikes. They're when you make something from single-use plastics, like a frame or something, it's necessarily going to be quite heavy. So it's a particular type, but it's but absolutely just really, really good. And you look at it and think, well, why have we not done this before? It's it's leveraging what you already know sometimes into something that, and stepping out into something new. And absolutely phenomenal idea, and really interesting, and that inward looking and then partner approach and other things that were platform approach has given us something there that maybe we wouldn't have thought of before.
Yep. Any more from anyone else at all in terms of exciting technologies or processes that you think are going to really make a difference, either internally or externally?
Okay, when I think about our processes that we all have in industry, I think the digital twin will be something that really changes our world, because then we've got the possibility to simulate. I'm not a technical expert, but the idea, that I've got a software where I can see what happens with the product in future. How can I put the connector into the train? What happens? And I can simulate what happens in 10 or 20 years. I can see what happens when I take different materials, when I design it in another way. I think this is something when we start to work with this, then we have to connect, because have a how do you call it? We are dependent, and then we find new solutions. But the digital twin, from my perspective, is a wonderful instrument in future, how we can work together and how we can highlight and really see when we change something, when we take a metal that is second source, or when we take a totally different material, what will happen. And this will be a game changer for sustainability.
Great, fantastic. So that digital twin is the modelling of the physical world, effectively. That can be products, processes, factories, anything, almost cities almost. So that's really interesting stuff. Thank you. So Lennart, how about yourself?
Yeah, it just fits perfectly to what I was thinking of. Bringing together different industries. And when I say this, for example, I mean our everyday life, when I just think about a couple of years in the future and experience how it will look like, having PV on your roof, having a car driven by electricity, and combining these industries, actually charging your car with your PV, and in the night use your car as a capacity, as a battery to light you up your house. And this is just not that far away. It's very close by. Everybody of us will probably experience such a use case in the very near future, how to do so, if not already existing in your houses already. And I think of the same idea for our industries, for our companies, thinking about our companies using the new electricity within our capacity standing out there, lots of cars on our parking spaces for our employees, so lots of batteries already in here. So combining these different technologies, these different industries and companies will be awesome for the future. And I think will be key for actually getting the next step to net zero, to circular economy, to, let's say, our electric society, to a new perspective of sustainability. And this is, I think, not that far away. It's just one step ahead, and we can see the first different technologies at a glance already. And the digital twin, of course, included, because you will see their smart software skills and even showcases, or even on your smartphone, maybe the status of your car, of your house, whatever. So this will be a nice combination of different abilities and technologies. I'm really looking forward to that.
Fantastic. Thank you. Andrea, did you want to?
I was just nodding violently, because I come from a kind of smart energy and connectivity and connected home and connected business background, and so it's not necessarily the really futuristic stuff that hasn't been created yet that excites me. It's exactly what Lennart just described. How all of our homes are going to be smart, and our businesses as well. Smart buildings, smart factories. All highly connected, that are kind of generating, storing, using their own energy. I can't wait to see that fully rolled out and adopted, because it's there already today. And as soon as we do that, we'll have so much more data to understand. Like, how is this piece of equipment performing versus this piece? Does this need more lubrication to, so it's running at optimum efficiency, and then that extends the life of that asset? Is this piece of equipment leaking energy or air, and we'll just automatically, by doing that, save more energy and therefore reduce our carbon and help to tackle climate change.
Fantastic. Thank you. Any more points at all from the room before we wrap up?
Yeah, from my side, if we talk about energy, it's quite interesting also for us. What we have seen in the past was when we tried to develop our energy management system, that we had to have a deeper look into the production sites. And then we found out not only our productions, also our suppliers, they have challenges to save energy, and then we collected some experience, and we found also solutions to reduce energy consumption. And now what we can see at the moment, what's going on is also that our customers, they are triggering us, and they try to find out how they can save energy at the supplier side. And then we can already share our experience, what we did already. And if we combine this with our product, for example, for energy saving, in the past, we were very well known as EMC expert. And in our portfolio, there are also LADs, and they can be used from many customers. And some customers, they use it for agriculture, and they want to save energy. And so we help them with our LADs, with our studies and experience, by setting the right wavelength so that they can use it in an optimized way in their application so that they save energy. And that's what we can offer as a component manufacturer. And this is an interesting part for us, and also quite experienced, what we can see here at the customer side, at our side, and at our raw material supplier side.
Yep. Thank you very much, Michael. Great. Okay, so I think we've probably come towards the end of our conversation today, and I have to say it's been a really positive experience. We've looked at sustainability from a company perspective, the impact on people, the impact on technology as we start to look forward, and it's quite clear there is some tremendous opportunity for innovation and collaboration amongst the engineering community. So I think all that is left for me really to do is to thank Design Spark for bringing us in the room today to have the opportunity to hold this discussion, and to thank you all for your varied and valued inputs. So I'm very grateful. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.